Good day to all. Welcome to Extreme Recap. A policeman is forced to rely on an organization after being shot while on a mission. Together, they must stop a group of renegade elves from resurrecting the dreaded Dark Lord. We'll talk about the movie's plot today. Human police officer Bright Ward works in the middle of an elves, orcs, and fairies-filled Los Angeles. While his partner is on one of his missions, he is taken aback by an armed gangster. Jack could be, was diverted at the food slows down. The policeman wakes up well the next day, but while he and his wife are having coffee, they are surprised by a fairy who is pestering the neighborhood. The man goes outside with a broom to scare the animal away. The policeman relentlessly attempts to strike the animal while his neighbors mock him, eventually using broomsticks to knock the poor animal to the ground. The two friends recently took a shortcut to work through the city of Elven, in which the police station locker room is populated solely by wealthy and snobby individuals. Because of Jacoby's lack of attention, the police decide to pursue the orc because they believe he poses a threat to the other coworkers. After they were given the task of working together, his partner was killed by gunfire. Again, Ward instructs his companion to wait in the vehicle. In the meantime, the man requests that the officer switch doubles, but the woman says no because no one wants to work with either of them as they move through the corridor. Jack may be present. The two partners are confronted by a gang before arriving at the scene, and after receiving a number of insults from other police officers for sticking a piece of paper on his back without the orc noticing, they travel through the city's streets. They saw other officers beating orcs when they arrived at the scene, while the family begs for mercy before they begin their work. Ward has to be aware on the off chance that his accomplice is actually a cop and will save him when the opportunity arrives to confront his own sort. Jacoby thus demonstrates his loyalty. They eventually move on to another incident, this one involving a sword-wielding beggar yelling in the middle of the street. The man then says that the Dark Lord will come back to control the orcs and points his weapon at Jacoby. The officers advanced swiftly on the man, pointing their guns at him, and demanded that he kneel down. So Jacoby cuffs the man before he leaves. Ward takes the corroded sword inside. He is warned by the local sheriff to be on the lookout for the fog thief gang, who are disrupting the town, while traveling. Inside the vehicle, the prisoner begins to feel ill and begins to speak in the Elven language. He says that the prophecy has chosen and makes some reference to a light shield. Ward says that the man next to him has good luck. The officer is unable to comprehend Jacoby's words. Whoever comprehends some of the language asserts that the man is utterly absurd. From that point forward, the IA staff comes to the ward to ask questions, remembering that Jacoby chased the shooter into an alley the day he was shot. The ladder was too high for the bandit to reach on his own, so he used some enigmatic means of escape. After the bandit had told his side of the story, suggesting that the policeman assisted the bandit in reaching it. The men insist that Ward obtain Jacoby's confession. The man, however, eventually agrees after the officers began to threaten his employment and the policeman refused. After this, a self-important mythical being shows up at the police headquarters and shows hatred for the orcs. But Jacoby thinks the person is a federal agent who is there because of him. Inside the vehicle, Ward attempts to get his accomplice to admit in the wake of letting him know that his girl generally talks. Reality. The policeman's plan, on the other hand, fails because the orb admits that he is aware that something bad happened at the police station before he left. In the meantime, the enchanted team officials examine the poor person trying to figure out how long he has been engaged with the safeguard of light. However, at this point, he remains silent. The man's head is pushed against the table by the angry interrogator, who reveals a symbol that was concealed beneath the man's back hair. Despite the big man's irritation, the elf maintains composure and approaches the man to inquire about the Inferni. This group is made up of renegade elves who are determined to unite three magic wands and bring the Dark Lord back to life. Then, the officials show an image of Lee, a brilliant individual who leads the Inferni. A magic wand can be touched by the bright without exploding, so they can utilize enchantment. In order to accomplish this, the revolution's leader must be captured by the magic task force. Tika, an elf who is being pursued by the Inferni, is the target of their pursuit. The man, on the other hand, continues to warn of the Dark Lord's approach and disregards the officials. He goes on to say that the monster was once bound by magic, and that it is now up to the Shield of Light to confront it as part of one of their missions. A scout is present when the two policemen arrive at what appears to be an abandoned location. The companions are shot at as soon as they get out of the vehicle, but they quickly hide behind a car. The enemy is then reloading his weapon, so they fire simultaneously to kill him. The agents take advantage of the situation and fire wildly. Along these lines, the outlaw is killed. Additionally, they both enter the location. In the wake of climbing the steps, the cops find a spot completely obliterated and loaded with blood. When they reach the end of some rooms, they discover guns, bombs, and a burned out body. After that, the men notice a blood trail, which leads them to the shooter. They had already taken it down. They come across a second burning body shortly after, further along. They recognized a lady with her hands up, stuck to the wall by shaded roots rising up out of her body. Ward responds quickly by requesting assistance from his coworkers. Out of nowhere, a clamor coming from one more space draws the consideration of the police officer. They spot a young lady and pursue her through the passages. The young lady crosses the crushed site easily, sneaking by tables and deftly going through windows. At the point when she gets outside, the young lady leaps off a vehicle, making Ward collide with the vehicle, but with his friend's assistance. They were successful in capturing her. Nonetheless, she involves a strong weapon that causes a blast in the closest vehicle, so the cop get away from her. Two men keep an eye on them and call for help from their companions. They come close to the girl and discover that the weapon she is wielding is a magic wand. The girl suddenly starts speaking the elven language, asking individuals for security, for both she and the wand are being pursued. At the point when the support group shows up, one of the police officers is enticed by the wand, for its power can satisfy any wish. Then, disregarding alerts about the risk of utilizing the supernatural item, the man puts on a glove and hushes up about the wand. Outside, Jacoby converses with the young lady and finds that she is Tika. Nevertheless, she longs fervently to leave the location before her pursuers locate her. In the meantime, the police team puts pressure on Ward to let them get rid of the orc rider and threatens to hurt his daughter if he doesn't. The officer then confronts Jacoby and asks him whether he let the criminal get away when Ward was shot. The man ends up pointing his gun at his orc partner inside the house after the argument gets out of hand. The officer admitted that they do not intend to allow anyone to escape the scene of the crime alive. The real story of that fateful day is then told by Jacoby. In point of fact, he did let the orc get away because he chased after the real criminal but ended up finding an innocent young man in an alley. The smell distinguished junkie from the shooter. However, if the authorities were present at the scene and observed the young man, they would end up killing an innocent man because they would not believe the policeman. Instinctively, shortly thereafter, the reinforcement team enters the house and inquires as to whether Ward has completed his task. After realizing that they intend to kill everyone, the man quickly turns and fires at them one by one with his gun until they are all dead. Jacoby is now shooting at the man because he is suspicious of his colleague. The orc continues to reject Ward's explanation that the police wanted to eliminate everyone there before they could settle their differences. Tika is terrified when a gang shows up on the scene. Because the bandits are aware that their territory contains a magic wand, they believe that the item belonged to them. After that, because Jacoby is an orc, they begin to threaten the police officers, particularly him. The criminals jumped when the two partners got into the car. Initially, on top of the vehicle. However, after a few maneuvers, the men are thrown from the vehicle and the police are able to flee the scene. However, a vehicle carrying armed criminals appears in the middle of the road and begins to pursue them. Jacoby loses control of the vehicle when the bandits fire at it, but he manages to recover before the situation gets worse. During the escape, Ward figures out how to take out one of his followers with a hit to the head. He then, at that point, raises a ruckus around town utilizing an immobilizer, making the outlaw fail to keep a grip on the vehicle, which collides hard with the left vehicle. The girl starts suddenly pleading with the officer to return to the house where they found her. The men, on the other hand, have no idea what Tika wants with this. The car abruptly collides with an invisible barrier after the wand begins to float independently. In the meantime, the policeman's interaction with the magic wand is already known to the members of the Magic Task Force. After that, the Inferni show up at the crime scene. Layla also inquires about the wall-pinning woman, who is informed that the traitor has fled after discovering the truth. Everyone remaining in the area is eventually eliminated by the band of rebel elves. In the meantime, Jack would hear that the wand caused the vehicle to come to a sudden stop because it couldn't get too far away from its owner. Saw, the Inferni's leader, they were requested to return to the house without delay by Tika. The homes close to the crime scene are searched by the elves. The residents let them know all that has occurred, however are as yet killed by the fiendish in the wake of finding that they can't remain excessively far away from Layla. The police officer examine their best course of action. However, when intruders enter the area and fire at them, they are taken aback. While tending to his wand, the orc fights one of them off. However, he ends up shooting the man and regrets it. Jack may be aware that the wand has been misplaced just as Ward and Tika are about to leave the scene. As a result, one of the criminals grabs it. After this, the man's body explodes, and after retrieving the wand, he and all of the bandits around him become ashes. While being pursued, the police leave the scene. They end up at a Fog Deeds party shortly thereafter. They also lose sight of Tika in the midst of the chaos. A fight breaks out when bandits suddenly start shooting. Ward was thrown against the wall by the orcs in an attempt to capture him, but Jacoby appears and aids him. The criminals are eliminated after the policeman successfully sprays them. The Magi task force discovers that Layla has been there looking for Tika because of the trail of bodies she left behind, and they quickly flee after finding the girl once more. Candle Meter has been looking for the Inferno's leader for 20 years, so he knows that without her wand, she is vulnerable. In the meantime, the two police officers donned clothes that they had purchased from a Los Angeles store to appear like regular citizens. After that, they run for cover in a bar nearby. Unexpectedly, men burst in, shooting and request that Ward hand over his wand. Jacoby, however, disagrees. So, despite Tico's warnings that something bad is coming, the two decide to start a gunfight. The Inferni catch the bandits off guard before the two begin firing. The elves use their claws to attack everyone, releasing the men's blood into the air. In the claws, the Inferni's skillful weapons eliminate the entire gang. Meanwhile, other armed police officers break in and take advantage of the opportunity to flee, but the elves quickly eliminate them. In the wake of watching out for his wounds, Ward calls the sheriff for help. However, the individual appears to be aiming a gun at the three of them. Rodriguez calls Ken after Jacoby shows him his wand. Domer, who wants to know where they are. The Inferni are listening to them. They attempted to locate the call but, after locating the location, cut the telephone network wire, resulting in a drop in signal. Ward is then compelled to handcuff his partner. Rodriguez also arrests him shortly after. Nonetheless, before the team shows up, the sheriff is out of nowhere shot right away. The police are still bound by handcuffs, despite the three of them hiding in the establishment. What's more, luckily, Ticket has figured out how to take the way too. An armed citizen remains outside the establishment's window despite Ward's warning. As a result, he is shot by the Inferni when they arrive, causing everything to fall apart in the commotion. Jacoby is dragged into the store by a speeding car because he has lost his gun and cannot move quickly enough to avoid being hit. When Ward tries to retrieve it, he nearly gets shot. Tika appears suddenly and leaps over the rack. She grabs the gun and fires it at the policeman, but before she can fire any more shots, she throws a gallon of water at the elf's head. The vehicle's driver then begins to back up. Jacoby, however, appears and throws a grill at the elf while dragging Ward behind the vehicle, attracting the enemy's attention. So he speeds up the vehicle, causing the organization to be squeezed against the destruction. Before Layla begins shooting, Tika deftly gets around the vehicle, holding her firearm. In any case, the mythical being calls the young lady a deceiver and discards her. Ward, who is hiding behind the shelves, is hit by the woman's gun now. Jacoby, on the other hand, flees the driver. Cop has just a single additional slug left. So, he decides to shoot a product on the shelves that can ignite, which causes an explosion in a chain that strikes his foes. The three were able to escape the scene at last, causing the business to catch fire. Nevertheless, as they traverse an alley, they are trapped by a pack of orcs who catch them in the Desperados' refuge. The policemen refuse to acknowledge that they possess the wand when the gang leader demands that they hand it over. After that, the orchestra began to punch and kick the two people. The companions refused to hand over the wand in spite of the circumstance. The gang leader becomes enraged as a result of this, striking Jacoby in the head with a knife and causing his blood to spurt. Without progress, the pack goes after the unprotected young lady and searches her handbag yet seizes nothing inside before he conveys the last blow. The criminal child perceives Jacoby and can't kill him since he was the teen that the cop let move away in the event in which Ward was shot. In this manner the monster finishes the job by shooting Jacoby, who falls into taking his son's gun. The thief is prepared to shoot Ward immediately, but Ward demonstrates no fear. However, the police officer Ticket swiftly uses her wand before he can finish, resulting in Jacoby's resurrection and the monster's retreat. After that, the policeman walks away from the scene in an alley with a tick on his lap. She informs him that she was once a member of the group and that the Inferni are looking for the Dark Lord's return. After that, Layla sent a woman with a wand to kill the girl. However, since Tickle was successful in stealing the magical object, he is now obligated to safeguard it at all costs in order to stop it from being returned to its owner. The girl's chest begins to show black scars as she finishes telling the story, which will return to normal only through the light shield, which is in the pool of the house where the police officer tracked down her in the wake of hearing the story. Jacoby accepts that the three are in a prediction, since the previous individual who defeated the Dark Lord was Orc. Subsequent to persuading Ward, the trio goes back to the house, where they find the remains of federal police officers trailing behind them. Jacoby acquires a bomb after they gather some of the nearby weapons. However, they are unaware that there are two people hiding in the room. In this manner, when they show up at the pool, they experience the Inferni playing out a custom of some kind or another. One of the evil elves on the other side of the wall is shot quickly by Ward, but he misses. His foe advances on him and takes his weapon as a result. Jacoby is stopped as well, but the officer is able to put a weight on his opponent's head. As a result, the orcs respond by striking the elves in the chest with a stake. In the wake of overcoming one of them, Jacoby tosses the lady through the window alongside a bomb, and she hangs by her feet. The explosive is then detonated by Ward, rendering one of the opponents powerless. One of the hooligans escapes and jumps at the orc, going after him. Layla also appears at that time, and she attacks Tika and the policeman. The Inferni's leader is extremely skilled, but despite numerous attempts, Ward manages to tie her up. In the interim, Jacoby tracks down a weapon and polishes off his rival. At last, Tika stands up, and keeping in mind that the cop limits Layla, the young lady involves her wand in the orc, employs a weapon to overcome the malevolent mythical being. As Ward takes Tika to the pool to recuperate the alfree surfaces behind Jacoby, she rapidly folds a string over the orc's neck and drives him over the gallery, making him be caught by the neck. The mythical being then goes down to the pool and takes the cop's wand, utilizing wizardry to overcome him. After that, Layla approaches Tika and rescues the young woman from the pool. Jacoby finally manages to remove the thread, but the elf threatens the girl when she starts pleading for her life. Layla, on the other hand, drops her wand when the orc shoots into her hand. Ward intends to take her wand close by and explode everybody around him. Yet, when he does, nothing occurs, uncovering that he is, as a matter of fact, a splendid. After this, the police officer is told by Pass to utilize a spell. He causes the Inferni leader in this manner. The man then looks for the girl in the pool before disappearing in an explosion. Yet, they can't find her anyplace, recommending that she likely took off. The task force has already reached the location. Jacoby also realizes as he heads outside that his friend is not behind him. So the orc gets back to the consuming site and finds Ward lying in the destruction. Subsequent to leaving the spot in salvageable shape, Jacoby finds everybody watching his courageous demonstration. In the hospital, everyone, including the group of orcs who had previously shunned him, now views him as an equal. Ward wakes up with his partner by his side and is handcuffed. The men from the task force arrive shortly thereafter. As a result, the cop sums up all of the events. After that, however, neither the wand nor the presence of magic were mentioned. The two cops got awards for their demonstrations of grit. Furthermore, as they watch out into the group, they understood that Tika is alive watching the honor function. Turn on notifications, please subscribe for more videos like this, and like the channel to support it. Thank you very much for watching.